Welcome to Nashville North Studios. We're so glad you could join us. We're here today. The group show in the main gallery is Counterculture, and we're in the solo room tonight with Barry Pisetzner, who has a beautiful body of work that you're going to want to come and see. It'll be here for another couple weeks, and then it will be gone. But you can come and see it, and we can ship it to you. We can drop it off on your porch. Whatever's good for you, we can do. In the meantime, I'm going to give you a little overview. And by the way, this is Judy. Judy and Jim are here at Nashville North Studios with Barry, as I said. And here's some of Barry's work. He created this collection specifically for this exhibition. He works in series, and as you can see, it's very colorful, full of line and design. So let me just read to you while you're looking over here at a little of his work. Barry's been making art for over 40 years. After first studying architecture and art at the University of Miami in Florida, he decided to go to Parsons School of Design in New York, where he graduated, and then went on to work in a professional career in Paris with Ruth Franken. So he's going to tell us a little bit about those stories of Paris, his schooling, and his career, and how he ended up at Nashville North Studios. We're lucky to have him. So I'm going to set the camera back down here. Barry's going to come on in and join us and tell us his story. So bear with me a minute. There we go. Are you there, Barry?
I'm here.
Okay, let me check the setting and make sure that's good. There you are. Okay. So Barry, welcome to Nashville North Studios.
Thank you, Judy. It's
And,
great to be here, and I appreciate all that you do for myself and the other artists that rely on you.
We're lucky to be able to provide the stage, if you will, to facilitate artists, regional artists, realizing their talents. And what a privilege it is to be in that journey with each and every one of them, including yourself. Barry, you were born in New York.
Correct.
Yes. And in New York, your family was creative. Can you tell us a little bit about your first memory of being intrigued by art?
Well, I grew up in a home. My mother was a painter as well as a homemaker. She spent a lot of time painting. She was very much interested in it. I watched her work. I thought her work was very good, and I was surrounded by those influences, as well as my father, who was a consulting engineer, structural engineer. We were constantly hearing stories about the architects and the projects he was working on. And my siblings were also into creative work. So that's kind of the base that I came from.
So when you first found that you had a pencil in your hand, if you will, and found that you could make a recognizable drawing, how old were you, do you think?
I'm still waiting for that moment to occur. But I would say that I felt good about my drawing finally when I was in college.
Okay.
And
That was at the University of Miami.
it really wasn't there yet.
Oh, okay.
But what I had taken a lot of really important lessons from the University of Miami to bring into New York with me. But I was doing a sketch at a bar in New York when somebody approached me and asked me if they could buy my drawing. And at that point, I said to myself, I guess I'm starting to get pretty good.
Yeah. And so did you sell it?
I did.
Yay!
I did.
That's one of the hardest things for some artists to do, to let their work go out in the world.
Yes.
Yes.
My point of view is that my children need to leave the nest.
Perfect, perfect. So, while you were discovering yourself in art, did you have any influences?
I had I had plenty of influences.
Mm-hmm.
My older brother, who I ended up staying with him for a little bit, as I mentioned, he had some drawing skills too. And so one of the earlier events that happened was that there was a banner day for Mickey Mantle at Yankee Stadium. And he created a banner for me to parade around. And it was a contest. I was sure I was going to be the winner. My brother's artwork was fantastic. And I still had a great time that day, even though no prizes.
But it was a winning piece.
It was
because
a winning
you were
piece.
both proud of it.
Yes.
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 Wonderful. So you did a series. We have an example in the window where you married, if you will, different artists. And tell us about the piece that's in our window right now, in the front window.
That piece is was painted maybe 8 years ago, featuring Picasso's work, Modigliani's work, two artists that I felt a great affinity to, really looked up to them, found something very motivating about their work. And it's an homage piece. So I used both of them because they did interact with each other, and I put them in the same space, a little of each of their work, and I called it Blind Date. I don't know if they would have been happy about being on this particular blind date, but the goal was to marry them together in a successful visual statement.
So you did other paintings that you had other artists together in. I remember you've exhibited them here from time to time. Very popular pieces.
I had a piece where I was combining Mondrian with Pollock. And that ended up being a theme that has stuck with me, one of my reoccurring themes of stretching the boundaries of style, concept, putting them together and trying to make it harmonious.
Yeah.
Harmonious statement.
Yeah. Jim could come in and sing to us in good harmony. Yes. So, I'm sorry for my little aside there. At any rate, there were artists, other artists besides the ones we've mentioned who have had an influence on you. Cézanne, Dali, Magritte,
Yes.
And others. When you were, if I may digress, or I may go forward to Paris, I don't know if we're before or after Paris right now, but while you were in Paris, you worked at the studio of Ruth Franken.
Yes.
And I believe you said her studio was near the Moulin Rouge.
Yes.
It is a famous, famous landmark.
Yes.
Yes, which I'm sure you went to.
I Honestly, I was inside once, just to look around. But that section of Paris was just a fantastic place to be. Up from the Moulin Rouge, you climbed a steep hill. Her studio was right on that hill on Rue Lepic, on the way up to Montmartre, where all the other painters would congregate and do their plein air paintings in the square.
So on this ground where you were, there's a long history of successful and sometimes not so successful artists, but it was a mecca that drew artists.
And I felt that it was important for me to follow that particular path. I thought it would be a good path to go on.
So you made a plan to go to Paris to do this.
Yes.
And you did it, and you succeeded at your plan. And you were there for about how long?
I was there for 6 months. I used up my resources, and without anything but a plane ticket in my hand, found my way to my older brother's place in New Jersey, who was a writer for the Bergen Record in North Jersey. He was a columnist.
Very
and
nice.
He took me in.
But you came with only a ticket and great memories and a wonderful experience.
I
too.
sure did.
Yeah.
And
a treasure.
I would tell any of my students to not pass up any sort of opportunity like that. It doesn't come around often.
No, it doesn't. In life, you have to seize the moment. Carpe diem.
Seize the moment.
Yes.
Yes.
So, you were at your brother's, and where did you go after that? Did you migrate back up to New York? Did you stay in New Jersey?
I commuted into Manhattan to do a variety of different art jobs, which included advertising, art restoration, sort of, and theater design, set design.
Wow.
That particular job was for a very colorful theater director who supported her theater by having an all-night club downstairs. My favorite time of working on the sets was late at night, and that's when the club was at full blast. And I almost got arrested one night because the club was raided, but they saw that I was doing something completely different, so I escaped the paddy wagon.
Lucky you. Lucky you. Another experience, maybe not so good. So you were in New York and you were working, and had you been to Parsons yet? Was this after Parsons? So you went to Paris after Parsons, came back to New Jersey, worked back and forth to New York.
Right.
And then where did you go?
Well, at about this time, I was trying to figure out how I could continue to make a steady income. My parents at the time were concerned that I didn't have a direction per se. And although I did feel I had a direction, however, they suggested an education degree, art education, and I took them up on it and went back to school and taught in the public schools for 30 years.
30 years. That was up in North Jersey.
That was in Marlton.
Marlton, New Jersey.
Which is North Jersey from where we are.
Yeah. True. And you're still teaching today, but in a different capacity, if you will.
I have private students that I really enjoy working with, and I also teach at the Art Center in Ocean City.
So you're available to teach at someone's home?
I am.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I prefer that than going into a larger venue to
Mhm.
teach at this point
Mm-hmm.
where we are.
And then occasionally you will teach a student here at Nashville North Studios.
That is correct.
Yes, so we're very lucky to have you in that capacity too.
And I'm lucky to be able to do that here.
Yeah. Well, the thing I noticed about you and your students, and I hear this from your other students too, what a good teacher you are,
Thank you.
how you help them discover their own path to art.
My philosophy in teaching is not to have students become little me's.
Mm-hmm.
I think that it is really important as a teacher to help them find who they are. And when they create artwork, to begin to understand that they are creating a life form that they now need to respect, understand, listen to, and help nurture it until its completion. I also feel that many forks in the road occur in the creative process. And I like to have an open mind in terms of changing courses, because that basically is what I'm being asked to do by the artwork at the time that it happens.
So part of your job as a teacher is to unwrap the gift in your student, and then as Georgia O'Keeffe said, allowing them to paint in their own way, not like someone else.
And I do say that to my students.
Mm-hmm.
You can be yourself and original, or you can just be a somewhat good or great even copy of somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
Most people prefer to be themselves.
Yeah, since everyone else is taken.
That is correct.
Yes, yes. So while we have you here in the studio, which the show will be up for another couple weeks, we're offering your work for acquisition. We can do drop-offs. We can ship your work, and we do ship all over the country, and have sold many pieces. And we'll also, I'm sure, be shipping yours in the not too far future. Do you want to talk to us about anything about your collection that's in this room, or your style?
Well, there's a dichotomy about what the art is saying and what I'm saying about the art. So, on the one hand, artwork should not be easily described in words, because art is its own language that does not translate easily to a verbal or written language, sometimes not at all. But I can tell you some of the important things that I'm exploring right now that I think if people hear that, they kind of appreciate a little bit more of what's happening while they're looking at my work. Just like when I studied artwork in the textbooks and I finally got to see them, I enjoyed them and understood them at such a greater level from the reading of it. So with that in mind, a couple of quick things that I think are important for people to know. One is that I'm experimenting with the form of the 2D framework and trying to redesign it in a sense of how an artist traditionally depicts space on a canvas. We know that I'm not the first one to be doing this, but for linear perspective, as an example, really hasn't been, as far as I understand it, tweaked or played around with for approximately 500 years. And that there are some common themes in how artists represent space in their artwork, things like playing with size, the intensity of colors come forward or not, they recede, and the things like overlapping. There's a lot of things. So what I've done in some of my work now, I'm interested in playing around with the idea that the horizon line in some of these works, for example, well, if I can just talk about this one painting.
Of course.
The horizon line typically is the place where things vanish to. They get smaller as you get closer to the horizon line. I like the idea of, and I think it's important to reconstruct some of these traditional methods, because I now live in a society that is reconstructing everything right now. A lot of breaking down and possibly rebuilding. And so one of the things is the perception, how one perceives the painting, how one perceives the space in the painting is something that I'm enjoying twisting, turning, and experimenting with. And in a case like this, you're beginning to see what I would be calling rolling perspective, where the horizon line has somewhere in the central part of the canvas has the most intense or detailed work in it. And then as you move away from the horizon line, things get smaller, things change angles, etc., etc.
Hold on a second. I'm going to show you a close-up of what Barry's talking about. There we go.
So this picture is called The River of Gold, I believe.
Over here.
And it has to do with...
River of Gold.
And so you see what's happening here. The main feature right here would be along the traditional horizon line, and it's popping out. In my future paintings, something like down here, which is kind of a sketch for a new piece that I would be working on. You have this intense area of the horizon line, and then as you start to move down through it, the angles change, the objects get smaller, and you begin to look down as in a bird's eye view. This would be a ground level view, and then when we get up higher in the canvas, it would be, which you don't really see it in this sketch, what's called worm's eye view. So you're looking up at things. So all of these things are happening in the same space, and it becomes a jumble. Just like in society, things are happening, becoming jumbled in the same space that we live in.
Taking old puzzle pieces and putting them in new places.
Exactly. And so some of this is heading in various stages of heading that way, and I'm going to continue to actually pursue this in the following year.
So this is just the beginning of the series,
This
shall we
is the
say?
beginning of the series.
Yes.
And I also plan on working on creating canvases that are not flat anymore.
Okay. Do you mind if we walk out here and look at your pieces on the wall with you?
This is a nice surprise.
Okay, so go ahead and we'll follow you.
Thank you.
Yeah, so Barry is, as I said, also one of our featured artists. And this isn't an impromptu thing we're doing. So we'll bring you out here and give you a glimpse at some of his work here. There's how many pieces here? 3, 4, 5, 6 pieces. I have to bring you over here so you can see from the side here. See, we have a profile. This actually comes out from the canvas.
And that face is ceramic that's fired, and I do a special kind of glazing that's not traditional.
Not traditional.
Yes.
Okay.
And so this is an example. These two are examples of social commentary.
Mm-hmm.
This is an example of taking opposites. We were speaking about that before.
Mm-hmm.
And trying to make sense of them together. And the two opposites in many of my work have to do with the rational and the irrational.
Mm-hmm. As we encounter in life.
As we encounter in life.
Yes. Yeah. So this is Barry's space in the Featured Artists Collective. So his work is always here. We're honored to have it. And that's why he was selected for the solo room. He has a lot to say, and this is too small of a space. So let's go back over there to the solo room and see if we can finish up with commentary about what's next. Oh, I wanted to show you while I'm right here. There was a university in California, Santa Clara University, who chose this work, as you see right here, for an article in their magazine called Explore. The article's title is The Moral Margins of Poverty and Prosperity Toward an Integrative Justice Model in Business. And they've selected this painting because it said without words what they were trying to say, with pages of words. So I find it very intriguing. I'm going to take you in for a little bit of a closer look. Barry, what influenced this particular piece? Because you didn't paint it for the article.
Correct. I have grown up in an environment that I believe that there's great injustice in our society, and that particular painting that you showed everybody, which is called Drowning Minorities, was inspired by the image of the prisoners that were kept in cages, prisoners of war, from pictures that I've seen where they were submersed in water and they had these bars over them, and I used that concept of what our society is doing to its minorities. And the bars are represented there.
They're money, aren't they?
By strips of money.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I want to say thank you. Thank you.
I want to say thank you as well.
This has been a wonderful art talk.
Thank you.
And we're sorry that our crowds can't be here because of COVID, that we're doing this on YouTube. But we invite you to like and subscribe to the Nashville North Studios channel, where you'll see art talk such as this by Barry and our other artists that are coming up in 2021, as well as the other ones we've had since the beginning of COVID. That's when we started doing this. So other than that, it was live, lots of people in the studio. Now we're a little bit more restricted, but we're continuing on, and we feel it's important for our artists to keep painting and creating.
I just wanted to add that this gallery is a beacon of light, a beacon of hope for many of us who pick up the newspaper or magazine or our phones and become depressed so easily with the things that are happening. And this keeps, I think, many of us hopeful, optimistic, and it's just such a nurturing place. So I want to thank you again, Judy, for nurturing so many of us and helping us get through.
Thank you. Virtual hugs. Thank you for everyone for watching, and we hope to see you again soon. Stop by the studio when you have time. 609-504-5044 will reach our number here, and we can set you up with a private tour if you prefer. Take care. Bye-bye.